Hello and good evening. We're here to kick off the penultimate week's racing of season 2 of the WTRL, and we've got a new face on the APAC tonight. Nathan Guerra, you're pretty much the professor of Zwift, and you're here to send our APAC crew into week 8. We've got a pretty interesting course tonight. We've been to Richmond before, but we haven't seen one quite like this before.
Yeah, a whole lot of sprinting going on out there today. 5 times on Monument that they're going to be chasing down some points for the team, as well as Libby Hill that's going to be rewarding some points. It's going to be essentially a 1 minute to 1.5 minute all-out effort. Yeah, I'm replacing Anna tonight. It seems that the mom dropouts, the mom technical ended up getting in the middle of things. So I got a great picture of Anna being an awesome mom, that's for sure, hanging out on the couch with the kiddos, and that's always the higher priority, of course, Kate.
Yeah, well, that is going to happen from time to time. I mean, I think we can pretty much assume when any commentator is talking for an awfully long time and the other one's silent, that it usually involves a child coming in or something like that. Let's take a bit of a look at the course. You've kind of described it with all the sprints there, but this is really something. I mean, we've been looking at a lot of the lumpier courses over the last couple of weeks. So this is finally time for the sprinters.
Yeah, definitely. And as you can see, we head down over to Monument for 5 times around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times you see that little sprint pop up there. And then they head downhill into the industrial park of Richmond for a little bit of a chill out for a little while. As you can see, definitely can get into a super tuck on the way down. There's a little bump next to the river. Nobody's really going to do much with that, though. And then as soon as they see the banner on the right-hand side, the red KOM banner, little less than 1K to go, more like about 800 meters full on over the top of the cobbles. We saw some crazy times. I think an average of about 8.8 watts per kilogram in the Premier Division, something similar to that, I think, be coming out of the Community League in order to take the win, I believe, out here today for the women's side of things. And the men's side probably pushing closer to 10 to 11 watts per kilogram. So absolutely crazy numbers to take the wins in the A category.
Yeah, I mean, with only 106 meters of climbing, even though Libby Hill is technically a hill finish, I don't really think it's enough to take too much out of the legs of those sprinters. They might be a bit tired from the intermediate sprint points, but they'll certainly still be reasonably fresh. There's a few big names we can look out for, because I've got to say, over the last couple of weeks, we've seen the sprinters kind of do the best that they possibly could on quite lumpy courses, kind of waiting for this one to get their revenge a little bit, I think. We've got some tight races at the top of the table, so let's take a quick look at where the teams are at, so we can deep dive into that one a little bit. And we'll start here with the women's Division A, and the two teams, Zed Sun and Aero. It looks on paper, Nathan, like there's a very big gap between them, but in actuality, the racing has been extremely tight and a bit of back to forth. So I think tonight will prove that once again.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, especially with the sprinting, as there won't be as many breaks in the situation. And, perhaps a little bit more contested there because of the flat nature of it. HDRL, Caffeine's there as well, with only a 2-point difference there with TBR Smile on. So definitely still a lot to fight for here in the B category. It's anybody's series still in week number 7.
All right, let's take a look at the C's. AHDRL are taking the top 4 spots there, but we ate the cake on top ahead of Spin Mafia. The Comets in 3rd, the Cruisettes in 4th. Only 1 point between Spin Mafia and the Comets. I think there's a little bit of in competitiveness between those crews. Rave C in 5th, CMA Queen Bee in 6th, and the Herd of Bilbies sitting in 7th.
And then in the D category, AHDRL Degenerates with the Diamonds, also from AHDRL, quite a ways behind, so it looks like the Degenerates are taking down the D category pretty easily. And then CMA Velo Girls and CMA Girl Power. That is going to be the women's racing series here for week number 7, what we're looking at. And then the men's here now.
Well, here's a race. I feel like we talk about this every week. You can weigh in with your opinion tonight, Nathan. Mix it up a little bit, because Anna is all for DPAC, course, with Sam Lindsay leading the charge there, but they're only 2 points ahead of Beast Mode Crew. Every single week, we spend an enormous amount of time talking about their riders and their strategies because they're certainly making it very interesting. Evo Savages are coming in third, a little bit adrift, but a fairly tight race between them and Team ZWC Blast in fourth. Cryogen Super Banieras in fifth. World Elite Zwifters number 2 are sitting in sixth. Smooth as Sun in seventh. WMZ All Stars in eighth. WTRL Pioneers in ninth. And Sickly Stefanelli, the Italian crew, they are rounding out that top 10. That is a really heated division there. So I think tonight will be pretty interesting.
And in the B category, Evo Barbarians there, 114 with the HDR below fives at 113. Again, quite the battle. But the Dirty Sprockets are right there as well. And that's going to make things really interesting with only 2 teams being able to move on up. So that'll be really cool to watch and see how that ends up playing out. TVR Gungar there as well with 89. Vision APAC followed by WMZ Bumble. And then after WMZ Bumble, it's going to be Cryogen Etna, Velo Club Mayo. And then it's going to be ZHQ Ravens and Z Sundries coming on through for 10th place.
All right, let's take a look at the C's. Another pretty tight race here still, with the chances leading over Cryogen LT'd in second. Sportive and Beer Rollers with the best jersey in the league. They take that competition. They're sitting in third. A very tight race here for around 4, 5, 6 with the Chargers, the Choppers, Carbos, even 46 Tooth, the big ring there, all within shot of each other. And then back down to Charlie, Evo Flux, and Valhalla Levitine, who again are all pretty tight. So I think we've got a few races within a race here tonight because it's not only the top of the table, but it's their second last chance to give it a crack. And with the team's time trial next week, their last chance kind of to shine as individuals.
In the D category, HDR Diesels tied up with WMZ Dodgers. So that'll be fun to watch how that plays out. As well as Cryogen Mount Hotham. And then it's going to be Delta running out for 4th place. That's going to be the D category for the men's in the APAC. Now, the women are out on course here. They did just go through their first sprint section. We will be able to show you a quick little replay of how that ended up playing out, actually. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. They have gone through just as they're into Monument Avenue already, 5.2 kilometers in, and the first sprint just done. Let's see how that ended up actually playing out here. As we do see, it looks like the lead out here coming from Clark. Butterworth there coming through at 6.5. There was a final kick, though, coming from Jen Petnin, a name that I think I've heard you speak a lot about, Kate. Actually, Jen, coming through at 10 watts per kilogram. Lots of aero power-ups, and Bemrose, Butterworth, Clark. That was the 4 that came on through, it looks like. But it was only the top 3 for the point.
Yeah, Jen Petnin, I mean, I would actually say she's far more suited on this course to that final climb. And I think a very good strategy for her to test the legs and to potentially go for the individual win today is to get some points early on. The person that I want to wonder what happened in that sprint is Danette Shaw, because she is definitely the snappiest sprinter amongst this lot, definitely. And so we'll have to see if maybe she's just sitting back early on and going to make a bit of a move. I don't expect there to be a lot of success with breakaways in this, but the exception to that, I reckon, would be any attacks that got over the top of these sprints, because when you've got 5 intermediate sprints before the finish, I mean, that will really start to wear the riders down.
Yeah, it's a great point. We've seen a lot of times riders, they'll sit in and amongst the wheels. It's almost like going through the sprint you sit on for a lead out train, and then you sit on just all the way through the sprint. And as soon as everybody's done, you just set a threshold or a little over VO2 while everybody put in a full on 10-second effort. They have to rest, and then you come over the top with your own little attack, carry the speed through the moment they start speeding down. It's really a timing thing, Kate, right? Like, you have to accelerate when everybody else is actually slowing down. If you accelerate while they still have speed, you're not going to get the gap that you're looking for. You can definitely get a quick 5 seconds, even 10 seconds over the top of an entire pack. And if you continue on, you could have a breakaway situation. And if they keep looking at each other for the sprints with such a small pack, you could break away all the way to Libby Hill. It's got to be very tactical, and the pack has to not be motivated, but it could happen.
It's a really savvy way to attack and timing, but it is pretty tough. And you can fine tune it a bit by really watching your power, which of course has a little bit of latency, but sometimes you can be a little bit fooled by perception and heart rate and think, I'm doing it a bit tough. There's no point attacking at this stage. But if you're doing it pretty tough, but the power has started to drop while you're in a wheel, that's when you know that they're all backing off a little bit. And it's almost, if you use it really well, Nathan, I reckon it's like having a ghost power up because they almost just don't have the chance to even respond to it until a couple of seconds later. I'm not sure that there'll be too many riders motivated to ride like that tonight, to be honest, especially with a smaller, tighter elite bunch here in the women. But we'll see. For any non-sprinters, it's definitely their best tactic for how to perhaps get away and get some sneaky points.
I'd be very motivated to do just that. I would want to get away so badly. Like, I mean, you might as well roll the dice once in a while. I think, at least for me, I would. I always like to take a risk, see what's going to be happening out there, and if the rider, you never know what might happen, what people are thinking out there. With a larger pack, especially amongst the men's A's, we'll take a look at the women's C's here in just a moment as well. Those larger packs, they're going to be cruising along at a much quicker speed. There's going to be more matches to burn amongst all the different athletes that are going to be in that pack. They're going to bring something back a little bit easier. Not as quite many bodies, not as quite many matches amongst a smaller group. Perhaps being able to get away from a smaller group out there, Kate. So we'll see. But in the men's field, I think you may have a processions to each and every one of the sprints.
Yeah, I think the men's race is quite different, and also because of the team dynamics and the lead outs. And I really feel like, especially the last couple of weeks have been, or really this whole season has been really slanted toward the climbers or the more, classic style riders. Not that we should necessarily put these athletes into specific boxes, especially given most of the racing is actually under an hour. But you still get a bit of a vague idea of people's strengths and weaknesses. But I do think it's kind of time for the men to have a bit of a go for the sprinters, because a lot of the sprinters have been sacrificing themselves quite early on the other stages. It is different for the women though, because there's been a very different team strategy playing out as we have a much smaller field. So it is interesting tonight. We've got a very full team here from Aero, but Zsun only have 2 riders. That may be why we're seeing especially Danette Shaw sit back a little bit, because she is definitely outnumbered. And if she starts going for every intermediate sprint, it is absolutely ripe for the others to attack. So we saw 2 of the Zsun riders who are a little bit distance off the back. And so the 2 up the front, they are on their own outnumbered, and they just need to play the smart game here. They really don't need to do anything at all. So they're coming into the sprint now, and look at that. That's Danette Shaw accelerating off the front. She's got the legs to do it. She's dropping the power up at the right time.
It would be Grace Smith. Grace Smith. Sorry to correct you there, but Grace Smith.
Sorry,
Grace Smith.
it is,
Shaw,
you're right.
I think, was the lead out there, I think, for Grace, though. Shaw actually ramped things up. I saw it 6-7 watts per kilogram around the corner. And then Grace out of Ireland here coming over the top. Nice little sprint from her, because they definitely missed out on the first go at the points. Maybe letting HDR, have a little bit of a go up front and wear themselves out. And now the second half, we'll have to see if they can grab a couple of more points, because it really is going to be about them getting as many of the points as possible. They aren't out of the race in any way whatsoever. There is going to be a lot of HDR Aero here. Well, with only 2 riders, man, how many points can you really accumulate up front? We'll have to wait and see. If they get fastest across the segment, they get first across the line. That's a lot of points to gain. So they got to keep on taking the win on that, though, as well as getting Shaw here up toward the front. If they don't, there's almost no way. With this many Aero riders, it's very, very difficult to compete.
Well, isn't that an interesting dynamic? Because Zsun are winning, they're leading overall. I mean, I don't think they can get beaten for the series at this stage with only 1 week left next week, even if Aero clean up. And so the leaderboard, it's a little bit of a furphy, isn't it? Because you look at it and you think, oh, Zed Sun are so dominant. But it hasn't actually played out like this. They just got a lot of points in those opening weeks. And they've come into this back half not quite as equipped. So look at that, a 17-point difference. That is unassailable at this point. So now we're kind of going for the individual. I feel like there's a bit of individual titles on the table here tonight. And not just the dynamic, Nathan, is not just about winning tonight, not just about this series and the team points, but we also have to start thinking about this is almost a little bit of a, I don't know, audition, if you will, for some of the other big esport teams, perhaps. Or maybe for a step like Aero, they've got a team in Prem League. Maybe some of these riders would then have a bit of a chance to step up if they can put out some impressive results, and same with Zed Sun. So there's a whole heap of things going on there tonight. I think we definitely can't assume that they're too worried about that overall board.
No, I don't think that Z Sun is too worried at all. And maybe cruising through the last couple of races here at this point. Now, we are going to jump in real quickly here with the B category, though. They are just coming through their second sprint. It does look like a little bit of a gap here between them. TBR Smile On losing one rider. This is going to be Dawn Courage, actually. We'll see if she can get back on terms here in just a moment. It is going to be the two top Caffeines versus Smile On. We do have Kearns. It's going to be Caffeines in the purple AHDRL kit, and then Caffeines there in the TBR, the big ring kit, as you can see here with Kearns Stokes now hammering away. Following Kong, that's going to be a rider I've heard a lot about as well. One of the stronger riders here. Trying to make a little bit of break happen. 3.3 off the front. If we look at the current situation there, it's only 3 meters now. If you do see it hit that 5 meter at the bottom of your screen here, you'll see that there is no draft being taken at that moment. Courage, it looks like a 3.5, trying to get back on terms. Waterhouse is here as well, just hanging on. The big ring, a little bit different situation. It's 5v4 here at this point, and it looks like trying to make a little bit of break, though. HDRL, they're not waiting up.
No, I like Lam Kong. I love the way she races. I love that she is pretty tenacious in every race that she's in. And not only that, she just has a way of proving you wrong when you say, oh, this course may not really necessarily suit her. Boom, there she is every single time. It's like she's listening, and she's like, ha, I don't think so. And off she goes. She's really impressive. One of the TBR Smile On ladies, Kimberly Kern-Stokes, she was on a bunch ride with me this morning, and I was the beacon, Nathan, sitting at a nice leisurely pace, and she was up in the front group, zipping off the front, having a little bit of a added speed to her and the ladies up the front. So she's got a few Ks in her legs already today, a little bit of a warm-up. I actually think there's a couple of these riders that I would look very heavily to perhaps step up to that A next year. And I know that in this season, the general consensus, both from the teams and also the awesome crew at WTRL, was that A's deserved their own division, B's wanted also their own division. But I think in many ways, if we put them back together, the Bs would more than hold their own in that higher category. So we'll have to see if perhaps they're a little bit keen to step up and do that next year. And I have to honourable mention to Margarita Williams, because every time I see her name, I think of both a lovely beverage and also a pizza. So there's a lot to love about Margarita.
Absolutely, and loving the names in game for sure. Always, you know, the M Margarita there. People get pretty creative with the names in game. That's for sure. I mean, she had to purposely go for that one, putting it as the M as the first name, and then followed up by the Margarita there, liking that. Now, this little section, of course, here, this is a section that riders can take a little bit of advantage on if they want to. There is a left-hand turn. On turns in Zwift, there is a little bit of a change in the draft at times. The avatars, they do move around a little bit. There is an opportunity to give a little bit of kick. It's a 3% gradient into a false flat. You can make things a little fast if you want to. Usually going to get chased down, but is an opportunity. We aren't seeing any of the riders though really go for it at this point. It looks like they are going to calm right on down and wait for the next sprint section. You can actually see nobody wants to go to the front. Everyone who's hitting the front end of this pack now is essentially just slowing right on down and saying, no, it's your turn. No, it's your turn. We don't really want to waste any energy. And it's really just a tempo, or not even a tempo, a Grupo Compacto peloton at this point.
I find it interesting to watch racing with people who are quite new to it, and they often get quite frustrated watching races where they're not, attacking and pushing off the front hard every time. But when you step back and consider the strategy and why would a lot of these riders sit on the front, push the pace, only to have someone sprint past them for points at the intermediates and the overall, you start to get a bit more of a picture of what they're trying to achieve with what they're doing, because we have to give them the credit they deserve in that it's very deliberate. Nobody is just rolling along and not really wanting to do a turn because they just kind of have a bit of CBF. And it's more because that is the strategic thing to do. So remembering that before the beginning of the race, they will have had a discussion about the tactics and how it might go. And of course, they'll also have somebody calling the shots while they're out. That may be a separate person. It may be one of the riders that are out on course. But either way, I think by this point in the season, and certainly we're now in season 2, so a lot of these riders have been together for quite a number of races now. They do get to know each other pretty well. And those cues are less verbal and more about rider behaviour and positioning in the bunch.
We have a very interesting situation here, Kate, when it comes to the choices of the bikes amongst this B category. Very different between the riders. I'm seeing a Tarmac Pro with, is that going to be Mellensteins perhaps here? I'm not positive if it's going to be, it's going to be one of the HDR riders actually. It's going to be not Cross, but perhaps Kern Stokes. I'm going to see if I, not Kern Stokes, see if I can figure out which rider this is, but pretty interesting. Yeah, it's going to be Smoker actually here with the Tarmac. Not Mellensteins, but one of the lighter weight wheels here. So this is going to be a rider that's, I believe, really thinking about the final climb more than anything else. She'll prove me wrong maybe in a second here, going for a little bit of a sprint. But if she doesn't and just follows wheels, you can see exactly what the tactic is here from Smoker with that final Libby Hill. It's going to be all about the climb for her, making sure that that lightest, best climbing bike is underneath her. Now looking also, though, as we did see just a moment ago, from, I believe it's going to be Kong, if I'm not incorrect, or one of the, no, Margarita, actually. If I'm, it's going to be on a Tron bike here. And then at the back, it's going to be Cross or Shabby. Excuse me, Shabby here. That's actually on a pure sprinter with the Cervelo and the Super 858s, which is a very expensive wheel setup, actually, but the fastest in game for a sprint. So definitely focusing on the sprints here for Shabby.
Well, it's interesting to consider that there may be some riders who are kind of hanging out for that final climb and just saving as much energy as they can. They've hit the sprint line now, so this is where it gets interesting. We do have a very clear run into the sprint here. All of the power-ups are being dropped. Lam Kong, is that who we're seeing? She's not. Lucy Isdale, now she's the one with all the speed in her legs. She's only come over in third, though. Kern Stokes may have taken that win there. Don't stop pedaling too much, though, Kerry. This is a real danger point, and it may have been between Kern Stokes and Lam Kong there. Nathan, we'll have to get those results up if we can to take a little bit of a look at that, but you are multitasking on the production tonight, so massive kudos to you there. That was pretty late minute. Now, what that says to me is that they want the points, but they're also really aware that these are 5 long sprints before they even get to Libby Hill. And if they attack them too early and make them quite long sprints, then they're going to carry a bit of fatigue going into that. So they are leaving it right to the last minute to drop those power-ups and to accelerate. But that is probably fairly common practice amongst all of the different bunches here. And once again, they've kind of settled back into a pretty good rhythm. Nobody's taking particular responsibility, but they're also not rolling along at 25k an hour. So they are still traveling at a decent speed.
Let me take a quick look here. I do believe we do have a little bit of a replay of what actually ended up happening there. We don't have results here at the moment, but replay will give us an idea of who came across where, when, and how. And it does look like it is going to be Shabby that came on through, and that's the rider that's actually on the fastest setup when it comes to wheels for the flat sections and the sprints with those 858s we were just talking about. So definitely the rider that's focusing in on from TBR Smile on for the sprints out there today.
Yeah, she wasn't looking too shabby at all. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. The Shabby and Kern Stokes actually have very similar avatars in terms of their hair and their face. I'd love to see their eyewear, but we can tell Shabby from the shoe covers there. So that's how we know that we're watching Shabby and not Kern Stokes, who I think might be right. Oh, there's Margarita. She's also got quite a bit of a savvy haircut there. So you can actually differentiate between the riders based on, their avatars' hairstyles, really. But you do have to
Mohawk.
first
The Mohawk's coming on through
Mohawk.
here. I mean, that's definitely going full on punk here with the glasses, no gloves on. A little bit of a rebel here, I think, with Margarita.
Well, I mean, the name says it all, right? Like pizza or booze, doesn't matter, maybe both. And the Mohawk, she's my kind of girl. I like her.
What are we saying here? I'm okay. We're just gonna leave that one there. But let's go ahead and jump on over to Gladwin here. She's gonna help us out getting over to the C category as they are making their way around the course as well. This can be the largest participation category actually amongst the riders out here. We'll see if we can get some of the riders to load on in. We also do have the men's race about to take off. Currently Gladwin she helped us get on over to the racing here for the C's. She is sitting in 18th place, so it has not made the lead group. Jumping up about a minute 26 up, it does look like there is a chase group trying to make something happen here with some of the cruisettes. AHDR Spin Mafia, though, it looks like they've made some breaks happen with We Ate the Cake out here. We'll be able to bring in the current series standings, give us an idea of why this is happening, because I have a feeling this is fairly tactical out here today with such a large group, but splitting so incredibly early here. Tasman Law hammering away. And this is Tasman Law. This is a name that's familiar to me because she was a D category rider in the last season, and it upgraded into this C category. Really great to see. Newer, I believe, Zwifter to this in 2020, and has really, it looks like, taken on the world of Zwift racing. Something that's one of the coolest stories for me, for sure, is like somebody coming into a racing world, never really, from my understanding, never really racing before, and suddenly like a part of this whole culture of racing through this virtual environment.
Well, there's AHDRL have a whole lot of teams out here, and they are pretty tight on the standings overall. We Ate the Cake are certainly taking the cake at the moment, but the Cruisettes and Comets are pretty tight overall. What I'm finding really interesting is their projected finish time is actually under 50 minutes. So there's a look at the standings, and We Ate the Cake, definite advantage there, but Spin Mafia and Comets only a point apart. They will definitely be racing for every single point they can get tonight. But they're actually tracking to be going a little bit faster than the A women, and a couple of minutes ahead of what the speed that B category is traveling at. So that just goes to show how hard these ladies have attacked today. And as you say with Law, like the athletes progress each season and do step up quite quickly. What we've seen, Jodie Hamilton there, she's one of our regulars who does an awesome job out there. Got a very good brain on her. She's really figured out the strategy behind the racing element here. She's a real asset to that team. And, well, they'll need that tonight because with only 1 point ahead of the Comets. But I think that a lot of these C riders are on a very big, steep trajectory, and we could see a lot of them able to step up to that next category if they want to. Oh, look at the pens there for the men. They're about to head out of the pens. We often get asked about whether we can see that happen because it is quite a sight. So countdown is on and the flag has dropped. Off they go. The trainers disappear. The riders head out of the pens. They never head out at a leisurely pace either, Nathan. They always go out like a bit of a bull out of a gate. It's a pretty big field. You don't want to get stuck too far back because the pace is going to be very high.
Yeah, and we do see the regular names here. WTRL, we did see Stefanelli there as well as Beast Mode. It's going to be WEZ Evo, and then, of course, DPAC, who is our current leaders out here. Vroon now to the front there from Zeeson as they come underneath the banner. They will not be seeing that again. They're going to be heading on over toward the 5 sprints and then toward Libby Hill. As you had said, it's going to be all about the sprinters out there tonight. I do think that DPAC may be one of the favored teams out here. Maybe going to have a little bit. I mean, we could see some of the other teams hunting down some points. Beast Mode are going to have their work cut out for them, though, I think, today. Be having the reality of James Bevan, Sam Lindsay, a couple of names that definitely come to mind that are going to be on Beast Mode's mind as well to be following. Diavola also has an amazing sprint. I've actually sprinted with him a couple of times in the last couple of months here. Very difficult rider to deal with. And I think maybe not one of their, I would say, all-stars for the final sprint, but somebody could pick up points in the midway in order to really solidify the team at the top.
Yeah, it's a very interesting sprint field, to be honest. And I wouldn't surprise me if the teams from early on do quite organised lead-outs for these intermediate sprint points because they can all definitely add up. James Bevan has put out some of the most incredible numbers we've seen all season. Sam Lindsay has been one of the most impressive riders all season, but on a purely flat course, we would expect that he's not necessarily the name to watch. But Beast Mode, I mean, they've got some big engines in there, so that'll be, I think they've got a big opportunity today.
Yeah, they're going to have to really play their cards right, set things up, follow wheels correctly, I think, and take full advantage. Now, you will see in the kits, just to name out some of the teams here, DPAC Elite, as you can see, they're going to be in the yellow and black with a little bit with the white on the back there. We can see James Bevan there right in the bottom of the screen. Beast Mode is going to be riding around in the orange kits. We'll see if we can grab a couple of those riders to give you an idea. But Seb, Beast Mode there on the right-hand side with the German flag, as you can see, riding in the orange. Z-Sun, obviously, in their usual kit there with the white and the big Z on the back. WTRL, bright yellow and black. Neon yellow, actually, a little bit, I would say. And then Cryogen with the blue. WEZ on the far left there with that blue and orange stripe right down the middle. So those are some of the jerseys to be watching out for in the sprints. Also, no pins R3R on the right-hand side, as you can see with the red and light blue. So a lot of times we do depend a lot on the riders nearby list as well as the names over the top of the avatars, but it always helps to get an idea of what the jerseys look like and be able to get some identification around each one of them.
And not just for us, but also for the riders, because in that split moment where somebody attacks or jumps early in a sprint, it is really handy if you can have a bit of an idea of at least which team may be doing it and may be moving, because it gives you the chance to be the first mover and certainly the first attacker. I feel like there's a little bit of cat and mouse going on already before this first sprint, because this first sprint, Nathan, it'll give away a little bit. It will really show who's got the legs and who's out there to give it a crack.
It's a great point, and I think that James Bevan is going to be a man to be watching out for, and I think the question that's going to be answered in this first sprint is whether or not Bevan is saving everything for that final climb, or if they're going to be using Bevan in the initial sprints through the flat sections. That is going to answer a lot for the DPAC team and who is doing what for them on the day. Now, I am getting word that Sam Lindsay is not in the race out here today for DPAC. So that is going to throw a wrench into their plans, I would think. In Beast Mode, they have a door to open here of opportunity right now in order to take back some points with only a 2-point difference out here today. Beast Mode crew, they have all of a huge opportunity in front of them today out on Richmond.
Hold on. If Sam Lindsay isn't there, is that why Anna's not with us tonight? Did she call Kid flat because her favourite Kiwi couldn't line up? I think I'll have to investigate that a little bit further. That is interesting. I think that he has played such an incredible role over the last few weeks in particular that it wouldn't be a bad week to give him a little bit of a rest, because they may really need that horsepower for that final TTT next week, depending on whether beast mode can claw back at any points. It looks to me as the sprint opens up that distinctive orange of beast mode is right up there and moving. And look at that sea of orange in power and sea of orange in jersey here. They're going to be over the top. Holy moly. Was that James Bevan who did that?
No,
That was
Campagnoni, actually, the
Campagnoni,
Italian
my
rider.
goodness. Woo.
That was, I mean, is this a newer rider? You're coming in from DPAC? That name is not one that I'm extremely familiar with, but what a kick coming from the Italian rider. We'll see if we can bring in some of that replay here and how that ended up playing out here, because that was absolutely flying.
We remember, though, at the end of season 1, all of a sudden names were popping up on teams that we didn't recognize, and we were like, hey, where did they come from? And it was almost like a little bit of politics started being played and team movements started happening before the potential playoffs. So remembering that we've got another week of kind of normal season, and then we do have a dedicated weekend of playoffs. So, maybe they're giving him a bit of a trial, and wasn't that a successful one? Because that was a very good sprint. He's a 16 watts per kilo for 15-second kind of sprinter, but the acceleration there, that was wow. He didn't just keep them on the line. Didn't he fly past the rest of the crew? It looked to me actually like DPAC were giving a pretty good lead out, and he just rocketed.
The timing was so incredibly perfect too, Kate. I mean, that had to be perfectly timed to come through at just the right time. Last 200-meter type sprint. Nice little kick there. DPAC showing that, they've shown up to race out here today. It's definitely not a week off for them.
No, it certainly isn't a week off. Beast Mode did a good job. They would have accrued potentially more points in that sprint overall, because it does go quite deep compared to DPAC, because they did have quite a few in that top 10, which is a good start for them. I'd say that a bit of a pattern that we've seen so far, we're in week 7 now of this season with Beast Mode, and they really did explode into this season with a big bang, is that the first half of the race, they're often very dominant and they really put themselves out there. The second half of the race is where DPAC muscle over the top a little bit and pull that back. So it's pretty early to be kind of making too many assumptions of what may happen. But we have seen a few kind of throwdowns go out, and a bit of an indicator of what may go on. James Bevan, he didn't do a lot, which kind of shows me a bit of a team tactic there. He still went over the line in the top 10, but he didn't have to waste too much energy to do it. So that's pretty smart of him.
Yeah, I have a feeling. I thought I saw Bevan under some orange numbers. I thought he was going to be coming through a little bit, later in the sprint, similar to what I saw from Campagnoni. But I have a feeling that, as just what you just said, he did just show his cards a little bit. Watch out for Bevan in the final sprint. We did see something very similar in the men's premier division. Freddie Ovitt, one of the best sprinters, obviously, is all-arounder rider. I mean, he seems to be able to just do anything when it comes to Zwift racing. But I think Bevan, very similar in the kind of sprint that he can throw down to what we see from Ovitt and those kinds of speeds. It is going to favor Bevan if he can hang on through the first half of that climb for that final sprint. But being the type of rider that Bevan is, I think he has to reserve something through the front end of this race and follow wheels, allow the rest of his teammates to take down some sprints for him, so he has every last ounce of effort to get across the line in first place.
The week that impressed me the most with James Bevan was when they were in Innsbruck, and he's not known for his long climbing necessarily, as we've talked about how powerful he is in the sprint, but he went over the leg breaker, the little pinch in Innsbruck course, with such incredible powers, and he went over on occasions. And that's where we really had to sit up and pay attention and go, wow, this guy is a lot more than just a pure sprinter. And I actually think that the Libby Hill after party course suits him to a T, because he did struggle a little bit up that climb in Innsbruck, which, you know, many riders do. Even some of the climbers find that one pretty difficult because it is a half an hour climb. But, you know, he's a 1200 watt per 15-second kind of rider. And the reason that I
1200 for 15 seconds, Kate.
Yeah,
like think about. I mean, I try and hit 1200 as just max wattage. Like that's all I care. Like, can I see 1200 for just a moment? And he's doing it for a full 15 seconds. Like, what is the max power? I think we saw 23 watts per kilogram or something like that when we were on Innsbruck Ring when he was going for a couple of those sprints.
Yeah, that's exactly right, because that 15-second power is an 18 watt average for 15 seconds. It's when we break it down to what we could potentially see today, the thing that is most telling to me is not necessarily the watts per kg, but just the raw power, because it is flat. And for these intermediate sprints, that will count more. When we do go up Libby Hill, those watts per kg will come into it a little bit more. But in saying that, James Bevan, he's on the top of the chart for both raw wattage and watts per kg, because he packs a punch for a slighter built rider. Isn't that everybody's dream? Actually, I really think it is in terms of watts per kg. Look at this, Nathan. They're lining up for the sprint again. All of these power-ups are being dropped early. They're positioning. They're starting to hit out. Everything, it's a sea of orange here on the right. Beast mode, they are active, but it's Jones from DPAC, followed hot on the heels by Ranker from Beast mode. It looked to me like Beast mode actually came across the line maybe in second, third, fourth and fifth. So we have two quite competing scenarios and strategies here. DPAC have now very impressively won with two separate riders, but Beast Mode is sort of stacking that front to collect some more points, Nathan.
Yeah, you do see a sea of orange behind the riders that seem to be the dedicated riders. DPAC have shown up with a plan, because I did see that the Italian rider Caponoti was just hanging out. And they went ahead and they threw Jones at the front. Ranker, as you did say, Persky, as you can see, Zils. Pacheco, they're rounding out the top 5. So they still got some points here, but Beast Mode, you know, they're playing correctly to the team situation rather than just trying to take the all-out win with a single rider. And that might end up playing into their hands here to take the win on the day, since it is a team competition. The team with the most points at the end of the day, not first across the line, is going to be the ones that take the win most likely. As we do see with Heino on the ladies' side of things in the Premier Division, also seeing consistency with Canyon Esports and the men's side of things. You know, Freddie Oven might be dominating the Premier Division, but that does not mean that they are the top team, because Canyon Esports is more consistent with their top 10, top 5s. As we just saw with Beast Mode here in this sprint, perhaps they're saying, no, just make sure we follow the wheels correctly here, have enough sprinters at the front end, bring the power across all the riders, across the team, grab as many points as we can. And that might end up playing very well into their hands here. So now the other thing I'm noticing is it's DPAC and Beast Mode at the front here. ZWC, Cryogen, not too involved in these sprints. Maybe sitting back and watching for the first two. We still have 3 sprints to go. Or are they just a level above these top 2 teams?
Well, I think there's an element where they're watching each other's back a bit. And, you know, to their credit, that is because both of the teams have been quite dominant in an overall fashion. We've seen some real flashes of brilliance from the other teams throughout the series. But for the most part, the aggressors and who's been controlling the race have definitely been DPAC and Beast Mode. In many ways, I think at this point in the season, it's very easy for the other teams to almost sit back and go, all right, guys, well, you've done this all season. We'll let you, you know, race your race early on and almost save themselves for that Libby Hill climb and save their legs when it matters a little bit more. Bearing in mind that it is about overall points. Yes, it is not just about who wins, But there is a little bit of pride and ego in taking that individual win overall. So it's definitely something that the teams will be looking to do, even if they're not in contention to go into that playoff, to step up, or even to uh, feature in that top 3 overall for the season.
We do have the women heading toward their final climbs here, and we do have a situation that are playing out. We did miss this break situation, but look at this. A rider, one of your favorites here, coming from Arrow, Jen Petnin off the front. And on a break, solo at this point. We were not expecting this to happen. Butterworth busy here trying to chase things down. Unable to do so, it looks like, but able to get away from Z-Sun. And that looks to be the plan. Grace Smith being forced to the front and Arrow just able to sit in. I mean, this is the perfect situation for Team Arrow up against Z-Sunderstruck.
Yeah, this is plum position, isn't it? And this is what happens when you outnumber them. Jen Petnin, we know she's one of those kind of diesel engines where if she gets going, she's very hard to bring back. But far more to the point is Zed-Sun are kind of out of options to bring her back because they've still got 4 Aero riders sitting on them. If they do use all of their energy to bring Petnin back, the only thing that will happen is then Butterworth will go, Bemrose will go. It will become an aero show, absolutely. Grace Smith and Danette Shaw are very good sprinters, and it is dangerous to come to the finish with either of them. Aero knew, even though they had the numerical advantage, that they had to get rid of the sprinters, and they've done exactly that. A very good job of making that happen. So they're not far off the finish now, and Aero have kind of tied a knot around this one, I think.
Yeah, the top 2 spots. The only thing that's still in the back pocket here for Z-Sun, I mean, and I don't think it's going to take down the win out here today. Now, with the reality of the way that the points do structure at the end of the day, Z-Sun's still going to have that solid lead. But the win out here today is going to be going to Arrow, and it's always good, on a single day of racing. That's how things, really play out across the series, and a nice win here for Arrow. It's always fun to have a win on the day, and they've definitely made that happen. Now, what still, though, Danette Shaw and Grace can pull off here, having Jen Pettin and Butterworth off the front, being probably the strongest riders amongst that Arrow team, they could take the fastest for the segment still over the top of Libby Hill, which would be nice for their team. But Arrow dominating at this point. Garland with a little bit of attack, though. I can see in the rider list nearby Michaela as well, so they may not be allowing Grace or Shaw too much leeway out here today, as we still watch Jen Petman looks like take on the cobbles over the top of Libby Hill.
Oh, this is a beautiful moment to be able to hit these cobbles and go up at your own pace. We can see that KOM banner not too far ahead. There are some steep sections here, but Petnin has this wrapped up all in a bow. She has done an excellent job of pulling this off. Butterworth, 40 seconds behind now, and it looks to me on that list like Danette Shaw is actually on the chase, trying to bridge that back, seeing if Z-Sun can get somewhere on the podium. And look at that. It is a lonely day for Shaw and Grace Smith. They are outnumbered, but that gap is closing to Butterworth. She's in sight, and they may actually be able to jump across. Jen Petnin takes the win, and what an incredible ride from her and the team today. Now, this is interesting. Look at this gap closing here. Danette Shaw bridging across. In fact, leaving the other Aero girls in their wake and really making the most of everything. She, even with that feather power up, Nathan, that just shows exactly how much power Danette Shaw has in her legs, even if she's outnumbered.
They close that gap down to Butterworth so incredibly quickly here, and it goes to show when you go off the front, if you do not have any power left in the legs, how quickly on a climb like this, it can just get shut down. Bemrose now looking to come across for third. It is going to be Butterworth trying to hang on, but her teammates come over the top there with McKay at 7.1. It's going to be Clark and Butterworth across the line for 6th place. That's the situation here for the women's A category. We'll jump in with the Bs in just a moment here. Back in with the men as we look to find the images there for the Bs. A category men here coming around for their, I believe it's going to be fourth lap here in just a moment. We'll double check here as we were away from the images just a moment ago. Any breaks is going to be the question, whether or not they starting to happen here. We do have Fowler off the back here, Errol Masters as well. Stefanelli, a name I was not expecting to see off the back. So, although we are in a situation where it is fairly flat, it is dangerous out there with a little bit of an attentiveness.
It's interesting, isn't it, to see that DPAC have won those intermediate sprints, but with different riders. James Bevan sitting on the back, that just oozes confidence to me. There's really only two reasons you sit at the back of a bunch, and one is because you don't have the legs to sit at the front. The other one is because you feel so good that you're just sitting there biding your time and you're not nervous about what may happen at the front of the bunch. So that, to me, is a real sign of confidence. Obviously, on paper, given those incredible numbers we chatted about earlier, that 1,200 plus watts for 15 seconds, we know he's more than capable on a Libby Hill style climb of succeeding. But, they are not always on the best days with their numbers, and so we kind of have to take them with a bit of a grain of salt. But this show, to me, hanging out at the back, says to me that Bevan's looking good, and Beast Mode want to pay attention to that. We've got the bees, the lady bees over here now. They've just hit that the bottom of that KOM, which is a little bit of a misnomer because it doesn't look too nasty here. When they hit the cobbles, Nathan, that's when it really starts in earnest. For anybody who's got that training, that setting on their training, their bikes will start to shake a little bit and tell them that it's really happening.
Yeah, initially it is a wind up, really, when it comes to this climb. The initial attacks at the bottom of the climb, unless you really have some confidence to try and give it a go for a full minute, you really just follow wheels. You ramp it up. I mean, you do start hitting into the high VO2 max at this moment, but it isn't usually into the high orange numbers. It's the second section here into the cobbles when the attacks really start to go. The initial, though, here from Kong, they do get a gap. They just let him go. Waterhouse is the only one to follow here. It does look like Kong's going to be just walking away with this one. 5.3 watts per kilogram. Waterhouse trying to come across. She might be able to do so. She's got 6.2 watts per kilogram. Has Kong gone too early is going to be the question. Where's the power-ups? Do they have none at this point, Kate? There it is. Another power-up, and that might be the nail in the coffin.
I think it's a sweaty finger struggling to find that button and drop that power up when it's needed. Lam Kong, one of the more dynamic riders in this field, but this is going to come all the way to the line here because Waterhouse is really pushing her for it. Can she come up beside her and push it all the way to the line? They're out of their seat, Nathan.
And Lam Kong takes it.
What a great finish.
That was so great to watch. That was super, super exciting. Between the bees, I'm loving the competition within the women bees competition, category there. Very awesome to see the top two coming across the line. The men now jumping on over. Lots of action, everybody. I know we're jumping around a lot. We'll jump into the women's C's here in a moment. We'll try and catch, though, this next sprint coming on through for the men. Back in with Bevan. The question is he going to go for a single one of these sprints? You do see on the left-hand side of the screen there just a moment ago, that is the sprint marker that they're going to be looking forward to. 180-degree turn in just a moment, and things are going to start wrapping up into this next sprint. And Bevan has not touched the front. 180 beats per minute here, Kate. That's a high heart rate for Bevan.
He's a high heart rate kind of rider from what I have noticed. The first few times I remember thinking, oh, he's in trouble, but it's a bit of a misnomer, I think. I feel good for Bevan. I think he's probably biding his time a little bit at the back. They're moving pretty quick. Let's not take that away. They're up at around nearly 50K now. Luke McKenzie, we've got here. He's actually got a pretty handy watts per kg, 15-second sprint. He averages over 1,000 watts for that. He's a lifetime kind of bike rider, has been an IRL racer for a long time, a lot of experience. Chris Hatz, he is also a very sharp and sassy sprinter. But DPAC, look at this. They are coming again. Devola just missing out there. Green taking the win. But once again, another DPAC rider up there and taking points, but it's almost a sea of orange at the front there. Nathan, look at all of these beast mode riders taking points.
This was actually a very interesting lead up. The Z-Sun rider went to the front and was just like, I don't even care. I'm just going to lead everybody out. I was extremely impressed by this. I mean, he just held on to the line. This is not something you usually see from a rider leading out and saying, I just don't even care. 13 watt per kilogram all the way through Evola. Nobody could come around regardless of the draft or the power up. So amazing kicks here coming on through from the Z-Sun Pro Cycling Tips CMI rider here. So now I'm wondering, now the name in there, S Green. Looking at this, it is a Z-Sun kit though. So maybe just a different tag coming on through for Green. Does have the UCI Pro jersey. So interesting to see. I'm gonna do some background investigation here, Kate, to figure out what's happening with this rider here that's riding for Z-Sun.
Deep dive into Simeon Green and see what we can find out about him. It's almost quite chilling, I think, to see what Beast Mode are doing this evening. If you recall, on that after party race up to Innsbruck, Heidemann almost bridged the entire gap on the slightly flat part of the climb. He just jumped across groups in the middle. Now, it cooked his legs and he wasn't able to then stay with Lindsay for the rest of that climb. But that was one of the moments within the race that really stood out to me, like, wow, this guy has got some really serious horsepower. If they can get organised into a good lead out, then I actually think that they've got some pretty big cards to play at the end. Hats looks pretty good on paper in terms of that. Ranker is another one. Again, if they can get 5 of them in a line, Nathan, they'll be pretty tough to beat. DPAC, we've seen that they've got a lot of options tonight and a lot of options with pretty good legs. This might be time for a Z-Sun rider, perhaps one of the Evo riders to maybe kind of sneak in. Arbe is one of the Evo riders we haven't seen so far. All right, let's take a look at this because fastest through segment is a very interesting one, and Campagnoni has taken that thus far. So the DPAC riders, and also some good point earning there from Ben Jones. So we were talking about the fact that perhaps Beast Mode were really coming out on top strategically, but when we dial that back a little bit and look at faster through segment, it actually tells quite a different story, doesn't it? So that's interesting. Zilsa from Beast Mode, Perska from Beast Mode, Seb, Ranker, Christopher Hatz, they've got 5 in the top 10. But DPAC have 4 in the top 10 with Campagnoni, Jones, Devola and James Bevan there as well, sneaking in a few points. So it is a bit of a race of 2 teams at the moment. But Simeon Green, what have we found out about him? He's thrown a bit of a cat amongst the pigeons with the performance in that last sprint.
Yeah, what an amazing ride here coming with him. 28 points, though, is all it's... I mean, DPAC have really racked up some points here. That's no joke when it comes to how many 101 points so far for DPAC for fastest across the line and fastest segment times so far. 35. And Mateo, that rider, that first time through with the amount of speed he came with, that was all about fastest through that segment there, because you saw the speed he came with from way back in the pack, and it's all about a timing thing because you do get a lot through the draft of the pack as well, using every one of those wheels and that huge kick from him. I'm not sure we're going to see him at the front end of the pack again because it might have been just about that 35 points here, Kate, and it's going to pay off, it looks like, for DPAC Elite.
Well, that is very smart. We discussed that perhaps Beast Mode were killing it in that regard. Isn't that interesting that visually it looks so different to what then comes through on that leaderboard? I think it's a good example of how the teams need to paddle their own canoe, so to speak, and not just get caught up in sprinting against the other riders and who crosses the line first, but definitely goes in with a very robust strategy. We know for Beast Mode that has been stack that top 5, top 10 with as many riders as you can, and very clearly with quite an opposed strategy. DPAC appear to have been going for those fastest through segments.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is the strategy out here today because, I mean, you do see Beast Mode with 25 points, 25 points. They are stacking that top 10 for sure, but EPAC Elite, plenty of riders in there as well, and walking away with Mateo and Ben Jones. Walking into the next sprint out here today, Simon Green, as we were talking about here, the only information I've really got, I mean, he rides for CMI in real life for the UCI team. It looks like level 30 Zwifter, riding for CMI Pro Cycling. Zistan in game here, and the only thing I got is if time is money, then I'm phenomenally wealthy. So he's got plenty of time on his hands. Is the only tagline that I have coming from him. He's also got some pretty good times through these fastest segment. Not sure if he's the richest out here yet today. He's gonna have to challenge Matteo, the Italian, at this point. The man coming out of Guam here. But here we go in the final 200. It's going to be Ranker here leading it out. Barry from WTRL. But no, it's going to be Stefanelli trying to prove me wrong. But here comes Heidemann. 13 watts per kilogram. Arrow power up. Ranker, his teammate, coming on through. Look at is that going to be a cryogen rider trying to make a move here as well with an arrow power up? Will we see a counter over the top? This will be the laps. We may see riders to try and give it a go, as it is only about, I believe, 8K to the finish line.
Wow, there was Heidemann. We spoke about him in relation to the incredible ride that he had in Innsbruck, albeit he did not end up on a results sheet in a particularly notable place. But I remember that almost bridge across, and I remember looking at the power and thinking, boy, this is the kind of rider that you swipe your highlighter across on a start list. As a danger man. I think he will be very dangerous going up Libby Hill. The other thing I think, Nathan, is that it doesn't really matter who you've got highlighted on your start list. When it comes to Libby Hill, the involved, they have to really make their plan, and they really need to stick to it, because you can do a lot of damage by going too early, by trying to jump with something that goes too early. Or by letting something go, waiting too late, and then not being able to make it up on that cobbled section. The minute they start ticking up, this is going to get harder. Pachicho, he's struggling a bit off the back, so hopefully he will come back on. What's happened there?
Yeah, I think what happened is Deepak saw that Bevan was off the back. We didn't catch it in the images, but it must have been an effort to try and get their man Bevan back involved. There's going to be an attack train on the front end of this pack. They know what's happening here amongst this group. Beast Mode do not want James Bevan back in this group. How did Bevan get dropped is going to be the question, because that is their danger man for the final climb. Bevan is out of the situation here. Does this open up the door for Beast Mode for the final climb? Fastest across the segment, and as well as first across the line, is a huge amount of points. So far from what we've seen from the sprints, obviously these have not updated from the latest sprint, but the reality is that Bevan was the man, it looked like, that was going to be taken maybe both the fastest first across the line as well as the segment. Now that's put out, that's not going to be in the picture any longer. Beast Mode perhaps able to do something similar in just a few moments here to what we've seen with Deepak across Monument Avenue.
Well, I took him sitting at the back as a show of power. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe that heart rate, rather than just being high like we've seen in the past, was actually indicative of being in the box a little bit, because it is not working out very well for James Bevan at all at this stage. And DPAC have taken a real hit for that too. Again, we know that on his best day, he is absolutely a danger man. We all have good and bad days. So it's disappointing for him that by this point in the season, when it is a day that suits him more than these other climbing courses, that it hasn't coincided for him. But DPAC they've got a few options, but I do think this presents an opportunity for Beast Mode, definitely, because maybe that will be just a little bit rattling for Deepak. If Bevan was in their final plan, then they will have to regroup and figure this out. Maybe Bevan said to them at the beginning, guys, I'll see what I can do, but I'm not sure I'm on a good one. And they planned around that. We're just kind of guessing at this point. Of course, they're the secrets that nobody gives away until the end, right? Otherwise, that could completely change the dynamic of it. But from the outside looking in, beast mode are in plum position. They're starting to move forward a lot here too.
There's no points on this that I'm aware of. Did they read the... I'm just going to double check. Maybe I got it wrong, but I don't believe there's any points up for grabs here.
Is this the 5th sprint, maybe?
Because they just came through a completely different section of course, and I do not believe that, no points on Broad Street. So
no, that's what we had in our notes, isn't it? No points there.
So beast mode going for something here, maybe just kind of putting a wrench in the middle of everything, kind of freaking everybody out. Like, well, no one was going to go for that. What happened? And then they went for something. Now they're all on the front here, calming down. But interesting to see here.
Curious one.
It is a curious one. Rusty Devlin saying fools. Oh, shots fired out here today.
Yeah, throwing it down. There is a lot of game detail that you need to be all over, and it can be a bit difficult, I think, when the blood is not rushing to the brain so much, but definitely more in the legs. But that was a bit of a mistake from them. If they had have kept going with it, I would have said, oh, that's a very savvy place to attack, but I don't think that's what's happened.
A little bit of a gap here, Kate. Look at this. This is dangerous gap, actually. You let something like this go. That is over 5 meters at this point. 20 meters going very quickly here. Who is back here? We do have a Deepak rider. I mean, it looks like it's going to come back. Not easily, though. Somebody's got to put out some serious numbers in just a moment. It's right on the edge here. It's going out to a second now. Going to have to see some orange number kick very quickly here. I'm not sure these riders are recognizing how quickly this can get away from them.
If they get back on, this speed is not going to drop. It's around the 70k an hour mark. They're around the 300 watts. They are only going to wind it up and crank it up from here. So even if they do bridge, just jump back across, and I think they will be able to. Campagnoni, look at that, Nathan. The sprinter from Deepak is now having to go to the front and pull out of danger of not getting back on, and Pacheco. So this is not a great spot for Deepak, and perhaps, maybe beast mode, the laugh
they
is
can
not
get
on them
something out of
all,
it. Yeah, they can get a little bit of something out of this. This little bump here will give there's a little bump that's like 3% or so. It may give the opportunity if things calm down toward the front, because there is a reality that in just a moment, everyone's going to start looking at each other, thinking about the final climb. It is only 1 second. So this little bump may give that opportunity for the riders to give that extra kick, close it down pretty quickly. But that's a match burned only about 2K from the line. I mean, that is not the timing you want to have a high heart rate.
But it's still 1 second. So it's only 1 second, but it still remains at 1 second. And it's Campagnoni that is having to chase. And Devlin, I think he says fool me. He was the one that threw the smackdown, wasn't he? Call them fools.
Yeah. Now Magnoli goes across. Laughing. He might be the only one that comes across, actually. Pacheco now coming across as well, putting everybody else into the red ZWC.
Nearly 190, Nathan, to get across. That is not a small fry, considering they're about to hit the bottom of that climb, and it's all up and all high powers from there. That was a really big effort. That was possibly one of the most defining sections of the entire race, and we're not even sure if it was all together on purpose or not.
And ZWC heading to the front, I think that they saw a little bit of chink in the armor there. I saw a lot of red and black toward the front end of the group just a moment ago. They may have been communicating saying, hey, we've got the other teams in trouble a little bit. Deepak's off the back. We see a little bit of an opportunity here. Go to the front, make it fast, keep the heart rates high, because Mikami's only 164 here at this point. And I think they may be looking to try and take a win out here today, if ZWC might be thinking about this final climb more than anything else.
There's a quiet genius in attacking for a sprint that's not a sprint, and everybody thinking that you stuffed up, but actually it's a secret plan to dominate. I don't mind it. It's sneaky, but it could be genius.
Now, this is I was expecting to see a 50 plus, group here at this point, but we're looking at about 30 some riders. It's really been whittled down. This was not expected at all. I thought it was just going to roll to the line. Things have been very difficult out here today. Nobody could just sit unattentive and just stroll into this line. That's for sure. We're about to head into this final K here now. Beast Mode versus DPAC has been the conversation, but we may have an upset here coming from WEZ. Cryogen, be watch out for them. Z Sun as well as ZWC as we head into the final kilometer right now.
And this is where it starts to get interesting. There are some riders that put out some big power numbers. Everybody will have done their homework. They will have known who they are. They cross into that KOM territory now. This is where it's a bit of a drag out. Nathan, it doesn't start in earnest until they hit those cobbles. This is where it's a little bit about positioning and posturing. A little bit of cat and mouse goes on. A lot of power-ups being dropped early on. I feel like it's perhaps a little bit early and they may want to save those for those steeper sections, but maybe it's a survival tactic as well. Jones from DPAC at the front there, he is chasing the wheel. They hit the cobbles. This is where it's game on.
And here we go now, WTRL to the front. Barry now 11 watts per kilogram very early. And as you said there, Kate, those early power-ups, definitely just a hang-on tactic most likely from riders that are not sure they're going to make it all the way to the line. Those who are saving for the final moments here are going to be the ones to watch out. And it's going to be Diavola here. Already threw down the power-up. He's going to hang on right to the line. CWC with Matsuki, but no! Diavola comes across the line. First place. DPAC take it down. That's going to be fastest across the line as well as first across the line amongst them. Simon Green coming through a little bit later here. We'll see if we can get a replay in for everybody here to see how that ended up playing out for the riders. What a kick to the line there coming from Diavola. We talked about him a little bit earlier. Very, very strong rider. I've seen, one thing I do want to say about Diavola, I've seen him a lot in the recent weeks in the KISS 100 races, as well as a lot of the endurance races, coming to the line with top 5s, top 10s. So it looks to be paying off for him, all the training here out on Zwift.
We knew they had a lot of options, and they certainly executed that really perfectly. The number of riders from DPAC who got significant points should not be overlooked. That was pretty solid tactic from them, definitely. Now look at the replay here. It looks like Green hits out early, but it's a little bit too early when some of those power-ups start getting dropped. When Diavola moves,
12 watt per kilogram kick.
That
kick there around the corner there too. Very, very solid kick. Looks like he saved perfectly to the line there, Kate. Like if we go backwards just a little bit, for those who are watching too, a lot of people watch this for a course recon too as well. And you saw, as you said, those early power-ups are waste really when it comes down to it. It's that last 15 seconds, these last two corners, it's where the race has been won almost across the board. That 10 to 12 watts per kilogram from Diavola, that's what won the race for him there. We do see across the line here, though, it's going to be Matsuki just hanging on with Cryogen. Look, where's Beast Mode? Nowhere to be seen, actually, Kate.
Nowhere to be seen. No, we said at the beginning of the day that this has happened a few times, Nathan, where at the beginning of the race, it's been all about Beast Mode, and then by the end, DPAC really muscle over the top. Bit of a different dynamic today with two very different, clearly different strategies around gaining points. But again, at the finish, there's no orange jerseys. That really surprises me. I think that they've got a lot more in the tank that they just haven't yet been able to really turn into the results they're looking for. And we know that they do because they are second overall on the table and not far behind DPAC. So they're still getting the points, but it is quite a different picture. We're watching Monster Truck, talking about good names, over here in B. Woo! He is monstering up this thing. That was a really good timed.
I wish I had some zingers from like a Monster Truck Arena, like car jumping. I just don't know their
Oh,
language.
that's
But
such an American thing. I don't know if we do that here.
Feather power up last two corners as we saw. Evans is going to be the man here, it looks like here. Blowfly is coming on through at 8.1 watts per kilogram. 192 beats per minute. The suffering is on. Here comes Weatherall here across the line, taking down Monster Truck. He's got to hold on. He's going to do so. 10 watts per kilogram here coming on from Toon Bike Works. That's the B category. Finishing across the line. We'll start getting some results in and some points here in just a moment. Monster Truck early on, but we've seen again why you do not want ZHQ Ravens here with Leech. Nice. Good to see some of the people who put the game together for us here coming across the line as well. But we see again and again here, Kate, why it's not about those kicks from 500 meters. It's really about that last 300. Those last two corners, it seems to be the section, of course, that people need to look forward.
And if you can save that power up, and if you can drop that at around the second last corner, I think that is definitely the most opportune time on this course to do that. That seems to be the best timing that works thus far. All of those early power up drops that are just a hang on, I still think they're misutilized. I think it's when the heart rate gets high and they're starting to feel almost a bit panicky. They need to settle down a little bit, settle into that uncomfortable, and then drop it just a little bit later when they are actually starting to get a tiny little bit distance. I think there has been a bit of confusion tonight around the different power-ups available as well, Nathan. Online, it said that the feather wouldn't be available this evening. That does go into a little bit of planning, but we have seen it dropped quite a number of times. So incidentally, it is in there. But some of them may not have been thinking about the power-ups, the feather, and where to use it exactly. And so that comes into play a little bit. Look at this. This is an AHDRC of blue and orange here.
It's got to be more than one team. We've got the Chargers. We've got
the Chances as well.
I mean, this is how do they even not win this? I mean, come on, boys. You better pull this off here because Cryogen and the Bumblebee kid here, they're going to make you, look a little silly if they
no
don't hear the Bikes and Beers SABR.
Don't stuff it up.
Exactly. There's plenty of riders here. They should be sending one or two off the front almost at this point, I would think. At least, I mean, I may be, if I were a team captain, I'd be like, make them chase at this point a little bit. But it looks like they're all going to calm right on down. You know, Kate, that was a really good point about the feather power up, though. Having that in the game, if you were thinking about when to throw down your power up, it does change things up a little bit. I would not mind a feather in using it for a good speed kick at the sharpest point on the cobbles, though. It would help out a lot. We have seen the arrow, though, time and again, really be the winner a lot of times on a sprint like this. In the women's field, though, it was a drafting power-up from Jackie Godby. That may just be pure watts, though, coming from such a monster of a rider.
The one consideration, I think, definitely down into the community leagues is that a lot of the riders will write down a plan and then not think too much about it except to then execute differently next time if it doesn't work. We can't expect a lot of these riders who are fairly new to racing to have the race acuity to switch up different tactics out on course, to be confident that that's the right thing to do for their teammates as well. And in saying that, they may have a physically written list saying exactly where they're going to use power-ups if and when, depending on what they have. Now, if the feather power-up just doesn't factor into that planning, it may be quite difficult for them, and it may throw their strategy a little bit when all of a sudden they've got a feather and they're like, they have to think, is it still the same time to use it as the other one? So that's a consideration. Dan Proven, he's been very good on the climbs. Doesn't surprise me that he's pushing from the front, but Pickles in that Bumblebee jersey, that's quite a cool avatar, actually.
Look
he's
at the
taken it
beard on Pickles.
pretty early,
I
though.
mean, oh my goodness.
Yes, you like Pickles' beard? Is there a little bit of FOMO going on there? You're going to grow
I don't know about the
Nathan?
FOMO. We've got a little bit of a shadow going on here, but we're going to leave it at that, I think, now, as we do have right now making his way to the front. I mean, I'm loving it for his avatar here, for just talking about the Fashion Police. Looking great. as far as that goes. But Nathan's going to stick with the 5 o'clock shadow. Now, right now, it looks like 6.3 watts per kilogram, 188. This is the section we keep on talking about through here. That second to last corner. There comes Lago. Oh my goodness, 9.7 watts per kilogram. This is the sprinter. That's for sure. Across the line, takes it down for the C's. And TT, look at this. HDR, they take third and fourth. They got the upset. We talked about the boys better make this happen, but not going to be happening out here today. It was
said
the
no
commentator's curse. We
it
totally did
up.
it. We totally did it.
Oh,
Kate.
heavens. They're such an awesome Aussie community. They've got so many riders across all of the different leagues. They're super competitive. Their founder, Tim Searle, his nickname is Bacon. He just finished, if you'd believe this, 200,000 kilometers, Nathan, in the Zwift world.
I mean, there's a reason why the nickname is Bacon. He can just eat it all day long with those kinds of kilometers.
Yeah, that is exactly right.
Like,
Forget the power and energy drinks. Who needs Gatorade when you can have bacon?
I mean, seriously. We were in competition for a little while for the top. It was Scotty Weiss. It was Tim Searle. It was myself and a couple of others for the top spot when it came to mileage. And I took a little bit of break from racing for a little. I don't think I would have been able to keep up anyways, but I came back and was like, he put in an extra 20K over 20,000 kilometers. I'm done with that competition. But he is current world leader when it comes to an Aussie Hump Day ride. One of the best rides out there for sure out on Zwift. Every Wednesday that he helps lead. And I think he does 2 a day almost every day, if not more. So most consistent Zwifter, that's for sure. Tim Searle leading things out for the AHDR, but not consistent today when it came to the team there, it looked like. I mean, consistent for third and fourth, but, the other two teams, there were TCP and then it was I take a look through here, the results here, but, they got a little bit of an upset there for them. They had the numbers, but unable to come through with the finish.
Well, I was going to say that this is the only solo ride we've seen today, but let's not forget Jenny Pettinen and her very impressive win in the A women to win that solo. But it has, for the most part, come to the line in some kind of sprint, even though it's been quite strung out. So this is a pretty solid ride here. 14 seconds. Normally 15 seconds is like that safety margin. So I definitely wouldn't say that he's got it yet, but he is in the plum seat.
Yeah, not quite there yet, it looks like. Now, the question here for me on this men's D situation, it's really great that we're able to cover this here, having a little bit shorter of a race and a flatter race. Things not quite as spread out, so a lot of fun. I do love that we're able to see what's happening across the categories a little bit here for the men's field. The Diesels versus the Dodgers is the situation here for the D category. We also have Crowdgen Mount Hotham and then the Delta team in there as well. There's a couple of other WMZ Sapphires here as well, as you can see in and amongst the riders here trying to chase things down. Delta still involved. They're not going to be chasing though, Delta. As you can see, Delta here now amongst them in the orange kits, it looks like. Marina's there as well. All from the same country, actually. This is country versus country, actually. We're seeing a lot of Australian flags here as well. So this will be very interesting to see. I'm kind of liking the matchup here.
This is definitely an interesting dynamic, isn't it? You're right. It's not everybody's responsibility to chase if they've got a teammate up the road. But it looks like they're not happy to just roll it in and see how that goes. They're certainly still moving it. See the gap now, Nathan, it's down to 6 seconds. What a hard slog he's had out the front there. It was 14 seconds was the biggest gap that we saw, but that is definitely getting whittled down. He will have a very tough time on Libby Hill with fatigued legs, and I think that we can see those riders bridging across in the background. I think this might be the end of the day for Chow, but a really solid ride, and he's certainly got to be in it to win it, and he certainly has put it all out there.
One thing I do want to point out, though, is that this is a Filipino team, with Delta. It looks like one, two, three, four of their riders, and they are kind of able to sit in at this point and follow wheels. They have to close things down here. It looks like the HDR and WMZ. WMZ trying to bring things back. Looks like that does get shut down. Delta, they're not going to come over the top. It's still a 6-second gap. Bamford, excuse me, here on the back, maybe just looking to follow a couple of wheels. With 6 seconds at this point, is there going to be a sigh okay, we made that chase. Not going to bring anything back. Looks like Hamilton will continue on at 3.0. HDR going to keep that speed high. That's why it looks like, especially after being off the front for so long at threshold, most likely going to end up off the back. Most likely, that's the risk you take when you try and get away, Kate. Early on, if you do get caught, you're already burned. Not just your match; the whole box is gone at this point.
Yeah, this is like reaching into that cookie jar, eating them all in one sitting, and then wondering why you don't have any left. This is going to hurt. Libby Hill is going to be a really tough one. It is very very tight at the top of that table, as we just saw, and it will matter who crosses the line first between those AHDR teams. We can expect this to go all the way to the line. Delta, absolutely to their credit, the team out of the Philippines, they are sitting fourth on the table, but they've been the ones that have been the real antagonist here. So now I think it's over to the AHDR crew to fight it out and see who will go into that team time trial with the advantage and with the most points.
Yeah, it's a great point. This is a great battle in this category here, actually, between these two top teams. As you do see here, is going to be HDR Diesels versus the Dodgers. WZ trying to make some moves happen, as we do have RD here in second place. Bamford is going to every single place is going to matter here. Actually, Chua goes again. We said he was off the front without a whole lot to work with, but maybe we were incorrect. 4.5, 171 beats per minute. He's the strongest rider out here today, perhaps. 103 points, though. They're the lowest on the board, so maybe just be able to hit out on the day. It's going to be about consistency, though, when it comes to the Diesels versus the Dodgers. 116 here now. WMZ leading it out, 2.9 watts per kilogram. RD now being caught by Bamford, 1.6. And this is kind of one of those attrition moments. You can tell they're closing it down, then back it off. Closing it down, backing it off. Making sure that the gaps don't open up too much. It's just a little bit longer climb for the D category. Usually a 1 to 115, but I think they're going to be around that 2-minute mark or so, which kind of extends out how the efforts end up playing out. It's a different kind of sprint here between these riders.
We almost wrote him off. We did. We said this is going to be tough. He's eaten all the cookies. He's burnt all the matches, but he is holding that gap and, in fact, extended it now out to 10 seconds. I think he's going to take this. That has got to be one of the bravest rides we've seen so far today. He's going to have lactic acid coming out his eyeballs at this stage. So really solid ride for him.
Bamford.
He's just got to hang on now because Bamford... Oh, no, look at this. I mean, good for Bamford. Awesome ride. Oh, but heartbreak from Chow. If he gets overtaken here, it's going to go all the way to the line, though, Nathan. I don't know if is he going to get there.
No, he is going to get there. It looks like Bamford made it happen here. Up and over the top. One last little kick. Avatar put on his saddle. I thought Chwag, second time. No, not going to happen. Holmes then, the third rider, it looks like, across the line. Not quite. HDR, maybe not going to happen. 7 watts per kilogram, 2 little kicks, and it looks like it'll hold on to the line. Holmes, very close racing happened here in the D category. I'm loving this. To the line battles now. Marina's in amongst the mixed category. One of the women riders that are going to be coming across the line. As we do lose the images, though. We're going to be jumping around here just a all right, as we do now going to jump on over to, that's going to be the men's and the women's racing finish. We do have some of the results coming in here for the women's racing. Actually, you know, the Libby Hill, though, that final climb, making things really exciting out here today, Kate.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting racing. We thought that we were just set for a big bunch sprint. It would be exciting because bunch sprints usually are, but that we couldn't expect too much more. We were wrong. I don't mind being wrong sometimes, especially when it makes it so interesting. Jenny Pettinan, incredible ride for that solo win. A solo on this course is really hard. And Aero, I mean, they were up against the wall a bit. They had the numerical advantage, but in Smith and with Danette Shaw, they knew that if it came down to a bunch at the finish, it was going to be very hard to win. So they did that very well. But I'm still so curious about what Beast Mode were thinking with that intermediate sprint that wasn't a sprint. I think that was a bit of a tactical
There's
whoopsie
differing
there.
opinions actually in chat right now, Kate. There's a couple. Some are like, "Oh yeah, Sam Crofts is saying smart move by Seb. They were trying to make." And then Ed Morgan from DPAC's like, "Nah, I don't know about that. It ended up playing out for them." So different opinions out there. We'll have to wait and see if we can get some information about it.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is, everybody stuffs up from time to time, but Beast Mode is so clinical in their approach that they're probably not the ones we expect to do that. In saying that, what an incredible ride across the board from DPAC. At the beginning, we just were talking about the incredible power of James Bevan. He had a bit of a shocker of a day. Hopefully he can rest up and get some fluid in and he might feel a little bit better. But it didn't even matter because the rest of them were absolutely on fire, and that's with Sam Lindsay sitting up at home with his feet up on the ottoman, just tuning in. I mean, it's going to be pretty hard to beat them in the playoffs, I reckon. Like, they've got to be sitting pretty plumb for that, I'd reckon.
Yeah, looking forward. I mean, we have the TTT next week, and then just a couple of weeks out, it is going to be the playoffs, and I have a feeling some of the Premier Division riders are looking at the Community League going, what's coming for season 3? Yeah, because
yes.
And what's going on in my head right now is kind of this bubbling up, this boiling up of the best of the best, and it's going to just be absolutely on fire. There have been some dominating teams amongst the men and the women that have kind of been just almost undefeatable in some ways. It's kind of like you get to a point where it's like 20s across the board at the top. Heino, I'm thinking PO Auto, I'm thinking Canyon, just kind of like over and over again. But the reality of this community division continually feeding into that top, that's going to bring a lot of competition. I have a feeling it's going to even things out with the likes of DPAC and others across the rest of the regions.
Yeah, spot on. And if we look at the women, the aero women, even if they were in a position, they've already got a team up in Prem League, so they can't. But what they can do potentially is send some of their riders up. And so for them, it's also a little bit about proving themselves as well. So I love it. There's so many different dynamics going on at this point in the season. We'll take a look at those overall results when we can get them, because it'll be interesting to see how that's all come out in the wash in the end. So let's start with the women, and Jenny Pettinen, almost the ride of the day across the board here to win by 38 seconds. We thought it wasn't possible. She proved us wrong. Danette Shaw in second, 38 seconds behind Jess Bemrose, followed by Kath McKay, Meredith Clark, Busy Butterworth, Kim Garland, Kiralee Carberry, the other Z-Sun rider, and Grace Smith sitting there in 9th, and Jojo Zulberg coming in for 10th.
In the B's, it was Lam Kong across the line in first place, just barely ahead of Tess Waterhouse by 0.2 of a second. Tanya Cross in third, 2 seconds back. Lucy Esdale, separations that are happening on Libby Hills. You can see back 8 seconds there. In fourth place, Simone in fifth. Kate Braderick in sixth. It's going to be Kimberly Kern-Stokes in seventh. Margarita Williams on that 858's wheel coming in for 8th. Solid sprint still from her out there today. Sally Smoker coming through for 9th. And it's going to be Shabby there coming in for 10th place.
Not so shabby. Looking over at the Div C, we've got Sally Shuttleworth taking the win ahead of Jodie Hamilton. Well done, Jodie. She was nearly 5 seconds adrift. Thames and Law sitting in third. And a big season for her after stepping up from the Ds. Fran M in fourth, Jen Lewis coming in fifth, Mandy in sixth, Natalie Victor in seventh, Kaz Turner in eighth, Mazza Lovegrove in ninth, Zoe Stolton in 10th. The top 8 there, all within 22 seconds, and that all happens on that Libby Hill climb. That is the damage that it can do. So interesting results to know that really only one was won solo, but still these very big time gaps.
And then it's going to be Susan Lindsay coming on through for first place in the D category. Joy Lease in second there. And then Steph B followed up by Karen Hood. Mandy Wassman in fifth. And York in sixth. Andrea Robinson in seventh. Joanne Reck coming down through for 8th. 9th is Nicole McKay. And then it's going to be 10th place for Kathy Driver. On over to the men's results, as it is going to be Davola at the top there, Kate.
He is. What a ride from Deepak. Fabian Davola taking the win ahead of Kenji Matsuki in second, Kei Chut in third, Richard Barry in fourth, Simeon Green in fifth. He was a bit of a step up in those intermediate sprints. Ben Jones also won an intermediate. He was there in sixth, Aidan Lawrence in seventh, Colm Sheehan in eighth, Benjamin Fish in ninth, and Nicholas Ranker, the top beast mode rider, sitting there in 10th.
In the B category, Adam Evans takes it across the line. Max Weatherhall across the line for second. Monster Truck made an early move toward the bottom, but as we've seen over and over again, those early moves usually unable to hold on, except for in the D category. That was pretty amazing by Delta there. Fourth
a win
place
for the name, though, for Monster Truck.
Yeah, Monster Truck takes it down for sure. Tyso for fourth. Michael Templeton for fifth. Dave Husband comes on through for sixth. Tristan Paradine with a bug. The mosquito taking all the blood out of everybody there in seventh there. Richard Spear there for
Bloodsucker.
Maybe that's like a hidden wheel sucker there. Ninth to Daniel
Yeah.
Kenny Simmons coming on through for 10th place.
Remembering that it is a mixed division, so Annie Simmons there with the ladies represent. Ton Villago took the win for the C's. Douglas in second. Hamish Wright in third. Dave Proven in fourth. Tom Gallagher in fifth. David Pickles. Gee, he rode well. It was a shame he didn't quite have the horsepower up the hill, but he put himself out there. Jonathan Brook in seventh. Kev Opal from the Chances in eighth. Steve Yates in ninth. And Rock. Like, do we think it's The Rock, Nathan? Do we think the actual Rock is racing in APAC Division C? I mean, why not? That'd be cool. Shout out to you.
In the D category, Shane Bamford waited till the last moment, threw down that feather power up, and he was able to take it across the line just ahead of Twal. Kenneth Twal, he made a move very early on, had a solid gap. We thought maybe all the matches were burned. It had a few left, but not quite enough to take down HCR. Connor Holmes there for third. It will be Julius Batoon for fourth. Robbie D, NWSCC for fifth. Now, is that an Australian thing? I'm having a feeling that I don't know that sounds for something in Australia, or am I incorrect about that?
Well, the CC is the cycling club. The NWS, I'm not sure which state he's from, but it could be Northwestern something.
Northwest something. Yeah, okay.
I'll have to look that up.
Moy Ray
Love a good acronym.
Noso coming on through for sixth. Miss Scott there for seventh. Michael Hamilton for eighth. Victor Leonidas in ninth. And it's going to be G. Zinga coming on through for 10th place. We do have a lot of the preems coming on in. We'll leave those alone, though. For now, you can also head on over to WTRL.racing there for what the final scores are across the board. It is a points race. Those are first across the line for the day on Libby Hill, but the teams actually, Kate, and their accumulated points are what win on the day and take down 20, 19, 18, 15, all the way down through on the day across the team.
Yeah, and that's where it will get interesting, because sometimes we look at those overall points and it doesn't quite marry with the results that we see from the individuals, and we wonder why. So that's kind of how that all links up. But it is worth going over to WTRL.racing to get a bit of a feeling. And, the playoffs are coming up, so it is good for everybody to tune in to the community leagues that are still yet to run. So we have EMEA coming up as well as the Americas. So, Nathan, I reckon it's about time for you to get some sleep before all that happens.
Yeah, we do
but
have
thank
EMEA
you for stepping
later.
in for Anna tonight.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. EMEA does come in later. Then we got Americas and everything. If you guys want to check all that out, you haven't done so already. We had a lot of new viewers actually tonight, which was really interesting to see. So thanks everybody for tuning in. If you haven't done so, hit those follow buttons, subscribe buttons, you turn on your live notifications. It does help us out a lot. And you get to know anytime we do go live. I did just get a message, Northwestern Sydney Cycling Club. Kate, that's what it
Well, that's cool.
Sydney.
I should know that. I'm from Northwestern Sydney. I should know that. But I'm a proud Parramatta Cycling Club girl. So, I think it's a little bit of maybe selective club blinkers going on there, but I will pay more attention to that. So shout out to Northwestern Sydney.
Big shout out. For sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in, and Nathan for your production wizardry is amazing as usual. And we'll see everybody for APAC next week for the final week of season 2. Otherwise, join us for some of the other geographical locations, and we'll see you soon.